Yeah.
So it looked like he was trying to be fair, but they ended up writing a real short opinion, just basically upholding the state without giving any real reasoning behind it. You know, they usually try to hide these things and try to push them underground, basically.
Now, you don't have a lawyer representing you in these current cases or anything like that. You're doing all your own footwork and legal work and that type of stuff?
Pretty much. This is an issue that I've been kind of studying for years.
What do you think it's going to take to see a religious case through the courts in the U.S.? Do you think that can happen there?
Oh, eventually it will happen. You know, eventually the medical will go national, I think, here too. You know, I mean, you have medical in Canada pretty much, or medical necessity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a federal exemption program for sure.
But that's just for certain medical conditions, I imagine.
Yeah, that's right.
And you have the free growing of hemp. I mean, if you had a farm, you could grow hemp there, right?
Oh, definitely.
So, I mean, the law is changing. I mean, it's a slow process, and it's going to change here. Eventually, the religious challenge will be strong, and you know, I mean, the government really doesn't have a compelling reason to prohibit you from practicing your religion. I mean, their own administrative judge and the DEA, you know, ruled that it was one of the safest therapeutic substances known to man. Every major commission that has studied it has recommended that adults be able to use it in their home. So they really don't have a compelling interest, you know, in total prohibition. And since 10 states have made it through initiatives, people will be able to use it for medical use, and 10 states have decriminalized small amounts. The feds really don't have the manpower or the resources to enforce total prohibition.
Well, despite that, they are doing a pretty good job of terrorizing the marijuana users of North America. The federal budget on drugs is mostly spent fighting cannabis, and a lot of people are doing serious time, as you have. And some of these people are medical users as well as spiritual users. What do you think that's going to need to change that? Like, do you think that this information and history regarding cannabis that we've been researching can play a role in that or anything? What do you think is going to take to make that big paradigm shift?
It's changing. It's already changed. It's just a matter of time. You know, you just have to keep pushing the issue, and sooner or later you're going to find an honest judge. And every once in a while you do, and the law gets changed. And the voice of the people is the voice of God. I mean, the majority of the people in America support medical use. It's only the feds they're completely out of touch with the people.
Yeah.
On this issue. And you say you're gonna challenge them.
Yeah, we're filing a motion here. Basically, it's got to do with the freedom of religion issue here, and we're basing it on a case with a department store that wanted to open for Sunday sales, and they weren't permitted to because it was mandatory shutdown for Sunday. But that was showing that there wasn't freedom of religion because people were being forced to shut down on a certain religious day. And they said that, you know, by changing that, they're not going to affect the overall situation for the public, so they were able to change that.
So they didn't really have a compelling interest.
Yeah, that's right. And now in Canada, with the federal medical marijuana exemption program, with close to 1,000 people receiving cannabis from the government itself, we can show that we can make an exemption for spiritual use as well. That wouldn't affect the society wouldn't fall apart at the seams. Not that it would with full legalization either.
I'm sure there's some good case law on that. Here in the States, there's some case law to that effect too. That if they make a secular exemption, say for medical, that they have to entertain the religious exemption as well, or give a very compelling reason why they can entertain one and not entertain the other.
Yeah, well, Tom Brown did have Alvy Masika speak at his initial trial, but then there was only like 6 federal exemptees in a country of 300 million, whereas in Canada we have, like I say, close to 1,000 I think right now, in a country of 30 million. So there's already a pretty broadened spectrum of medical use, recognized medical use here that can be played upon. So I think that we do have a good chance. Plus, through my work as a researcher, I've come into contact with a number of academics who are willing to testify on the background history of cannabis. Now, have you thought about doing anything like that with any of your trials, trying to document the full history to show that
a lot of times they don't challenge the sincerity. I mean, if you get that far, you get a hearing, and you have to put on some evidence that you are sincere.
Yeah.
You're coming from someplace. You're not just making it up.
Yeah, well, the Ethiopian Zion Coptic Church, they have a charter from the Queen or something like that, don't they? Like
Yeah, they did. And, the courts recognized that we were sincere. But they said that because we just opened the doors to anyone and that children were allowed to use, that they used that at that time.
Do you think that if the church had mandated some sort of initiatory, maybe into adulthood type of situation where the kids were, had to be 16, 18 or some age there where they were thought to cross that threshold and the ganja was used to welcome into adulthood, that there would have been less an attack and less chance for the government to attack the church?
Oh, of course, but they would have probably found something else. They
didn't want it to happen. Well, that is like on the religious thing too. When you take a look at George Bush and a lot of the people that are against marijuana, it's really coming from the Christian right, in my opinion, in a very big way. How do we deal with that?
Well, I don't know if that's true. I think that when you got 80% of the people supporting medical marijuana here in the country, I don't think that's totally true. And I think the majority of the people in this country would support the growing of hemp and the religious use if they understood the history of it.
Yeah, if they understood the history of it. Well, I think that after 15 years of activism, and seeing the whole industrial hemp message go down, and now the medical marijuana message go down to the point where it's reached the mainstream and the mainstream populace out there, I think that they're ready for that message. How about you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they say America was founded on religious freedom, and there's a lot of stuff in the law.
And hemp.
And hemp, yeah. And the medical use of marijuana, too. I mean, Eli Lilly and Park Davis Pharmaceuticals made tinctures of cannabis before they outlawed it. It's really a short-time phenomena that has been illegal, really.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a phenomena. In many ways, the chains that bind us are those that free us. And I've often thought that cannabis wouldn't have become the tree of life for me, wouldn't have become this great sacrament without the prohibition of it and being repressed. And they're just as responsible for creating this as any activist, this powerful image and tool and logo for a movement.
I agree totally. The fact that they've suppressed it has actually made it more famous.
It's like the Garden of Eden myth,
Yeah, definitely. And the truth will set us free. It's just a matter of time,
T-shirts are like billboards, You can say so much with a T-shirt, and really you should utilize it. This is a great shirt a buddy of mine, Rob, got me in California. It's got the Last Supper with Jesus with a big pile of buds and a bong and some other stuff. And there's another great shirt out you can pick up on eBay, Smokin' Jesus. It's a real conversation starter and a good way to spread the Jesus meme. And like I said, the Jesus cannabis meme, I should more appropriately call it. Like I said, just as we saw the hemp message reach a threshold where hemp's a reality here in Canada, and the medical marijuana message reach a threshold where that's legal here in Canada, if we push this religious information to a degree where it becomes widely known and there's newspaper stories about it and it's being talked about in the media, we will push the threshold of that where that would become legalized. And what I basically hope to see happen with this religious motion here in Canada is that another exemption be made for members of the Canadian public, and this be for a spiritual exemption, much like the medical exemption. And I think that that's still only part way to the end of the battle. Full legalization is definitely in the goal of the cannabis movement. I think that as long as we get the Jesus thing to the meme where people think of cannabis and they think, oh yeah, hemp, oh yeah, medicinal hemp, oh yeah, Jesus healed cannabis, then we'll have won the battle, and that'll always stick with it, and that'll always be there, and that'll be always kind of like a gift we got from our ancestors. So here's